Do you think that this is a bit of a wake-up call, that rhetoric has gotten so heated? There are accusations and, comments about the fact that electing somebody would be the end of democracy as we know it, that kind of thing. We had former Attorney General Bill Barr say last night, Democrats have got to stop their grossly irresponsible talk about President Trump being an existential threat to democracy. He is not. Where do we go in our political conversation? I mean, this country is built on being able to disagree and do it in a very heated way.
I do want to push back on what David was saying about essentially saying that this is a problem that came from the Democratic side. And I would hope that we could take a little time off before we get to this. But the rhetoric out of the Republican side, out of Donald Trump himself or Don Jr. about the attack on Paul Pelosi, mocking him, making up a rumor that this was some gay sex event, right? And wasn't a terrible attack by someone who was politically motivated and could have taken his life. No. That is the genesis of this. This goes back to 2016.
In the wake of yesterday's abhorrent assassination attempt of former President Trump, there has been, as you can imagine, a variety of responses. Most notably, there has been unanimous condemnation amongst the Democratic Party, spearheaded by the President himself.
I spoke with Donald Trump. I'm sincerely grateful that he's doing well and recovering, and we had a short but good conversation. Jill and I are keeping him and his family in our prayers. We also extend our deepest condolences to the family of the victim who was killed. He was a father. He was protecting his family from the bullets that were being fired, and he lost his life. God love him. We're also praying for the full recovery of those who were injured, and we're grateful to the Secret Service agents and other law enforcement agencies and individuals who risked their lives. There is no place in America for this kind of violence, or any violence for that matter.
However, as one can also come to expect in a country so divided, an insatiable amount of conspiracy theories and unsubstantiated claims have been given a platform, mostly on X, thanks to Elon Musk's Hill site, to be mainstreamed. And I mean, it's one thing, right, for Republicans to find a way to blame this on Biden somehow, but how they're able to take a shooting committed by a white Republican male and make it about DEI is just next level verbal gymnastics.
Said something about how we all love our country, and I think it's generally true. Most Americans do love their country. One thing that I have found upsetting, if I can editorialize for 1 second, is the degree to which so many Americans claim to love their country but hate their fellow Americans. And I'm not talking about Republicans or Democrats. I see it everywhere, and I'm wondering if that's something that concerns you too.
It does. That's what I said. The greatest threat to our nation right now is that we're horribly divided. But again, in general, we share the same goals. So, why are we so divided? Well, there are political figures, there are political groups. I would argue that's what identity politics is about. That's what critical race theory is about. So there are people who are purposely trying to divide us for political advantage. Resist it. Don't let them get away with it. And again, start talking to each other. That's part of the problem.
Getting back to the rhetoric, right, because it's an important subject. Those of us understanding the danger posed with inflammatory rhetoric who condemned the attack on Paul Pelosi and the insurrection at the Capitol consistently warned of how such rhetoric often begets violence. However, while I've yet to see the alleged violent rhetoric that has seemingly emerged from the left leading to this ghastly event, as many MAGA Republicans have alluded to,
I'm really disgusted because here's why. Just earlier today on a fundraising phone call, and I'll quote, I want to make sure I get it right. Joe Biden told his donors that it's time to put Trump in a bullseye. Well, guess what? That is exactly what someone did today with their rifle as they attempted to assassinate President Trump. They did exactly what Joe Biden said.
Well, Joe Biden broke America's pledge to never leave a man behind. Nancy Pelosi is sneaking the Green New Deal into the $3.5 trillion budget. And in 2022, I'm going to blow away the Democrat socialist agenda.
Thankfully, Jessica Tarlov chose the perfect time to return to the Fox News airwaves to make this very point, and how, despite what the MAGA contingent are claiming, violent rhetoric is not bipartisan.
Border, it's focusing on crime.
The themes of his campaign.
Yeah.
Which, that totally makes sense to me, but I do want to push back on what David was saying about essentially saying that this is a problem that came from the Democratic side. And I would hope that we could take a little time off before we get to this. But the rhetoric out of the Republican side, out of Donald Trump himself or Don Jr. about the attack on Paul Pelosi, mocking him, making up a rumor that this was some gay sex event, right? And wasn't a terrible attack by someone who was politically motivated and could have taken his life. No. That is the genesis of this. This goes back to 2016.
Well, you can chicken and egg
to America.
Do you think that this is a bit of a wake-up call, that rhetoric has gotten so heated? There are accusations and, comments about the fact that electing somebody would be the end of democracy as we know it, that kind of thing. We had former Attorney General Bill Barr say last night, Democrats have got to stop their grossly irresponsible talk about President Trump being an existential threat to democracy. He is not. Where do we go in our political conversation? I mean, this country is built on being able to disagree and do it in a very heated way. But what about this?
Well, it is. But there is no place in politics in any way, shape or form for this kind of violence, for these types of actions. It's a horrific act. And we certainly don't know all of the details, and we're going to have time for investigations on it. But right now, I think everybody in America needs to stop. They need to pause. They need to reflect on what is actually important for us in this political process going forward. And, fortunately, we are here in Milwaukee, and the show is going to take place. I think it's tremendously important for us as a country that the Republican Party is going to move forward. We are going to be strong. We are going to be resilient, and certainly President Trump is going to be strong and resilient.
And so let me speak candidly for a second, right, to those that have tweeted and messaged me asking for my opinion. As has been reiterated across the Meidas media network, there is no excuse for violence of any kind, regardless of how one feels about someone's policies, difference of opinion, or rhetoric, right? But as I've also said, we must be honest and acknowledge, sadly, that shootings are a common method of conflict resolution within this very fragmented American society. Still, somehow there seems to be this numb response to the fact that an AR-15 was used, and a complete disregard for the ubiquity of gun violence itself.
Right, we couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up, and probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking, I'm estimating here, I have no idea, but we noticed a guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle.
A rifle.
We could clearly see him with a rifle, absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for 2-3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
So yeah, I'm relieved that the former president was not seriously harmed. But I would also ask those on the other side who are vehemently voicing their outrage to keep that same energy when a school shooting or mass shooting takes place in the country. Because listen, if the Secret Service cannot protect a candidate for president from a maniac with a rifle, how in the hell can we expect a teacher to protect a classroom of kids?
We must unite as one nation. We must unite as one nation to demonstrate who we are.
So allow me to reiterate Jessica Tarlov's point again. All I've seen is a unified approach from the Democrats, even the most stringent anti-Trump representatives fully condemning this atrocious attack with their full chest. Unlike when a madman tried to kill Paul Pelosi and MAGA Republicans, well, they joked about it. So of course our thoughts are with the former president, but don't tell me that both parties are the same here.
When we used to meet evil on the battlefield, and guess what we did to it? We killed it. We didn't quibble about it. We didn't argue about it. We didn't fight about it. We killed it. Some liberal somewhere is going to say that sounds awful. Too bad. Get mad at me if you want to. Some folks need killing. It's time for somebody to say it. It's not a matter of vengeance. It's not a matter of being mean or spiteful. It's a matter of necessity.
Hey Meidas Mighty, love this report? Continue the conversation by following us on Instagram @MeidasTouch to keep up with the most important news of the day. What are you waiting for? Follow us now.